So he drives to our house, and so he's there the next morning at like 8 o'clock in the morning. We're having breakfast, hanging out. He comes in with his little duffel bag, and it's like duct taped up. He's got his little Fu Manchu, and the most like aggressive, like just my mom was like completely turned off by this guy. She's like, "You're not playing for him."
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, she didn't like Pat at all. And but my dad was like, "This guy's the one." It was so funny,
You have
man.
those polar opposite views of the same dude.
Because he was eating off my mom's plate, like he was just like grabbing her drink, and like I'm like looking at him like this dude's literally insane.
Today's episode brought to you in part by our new sponsor, DraftKings. Been using them for the last several years to play daily fantasy. Now you can use them to bet on games. Yes, you don't have to find some place that's based in Belize or South America or the Caribbean. DraftKings, based right here on U.S. soil, allows you to bet on their new app right now. What better time? You have the NBA playoffs beginning. Major League Baseball is going on. The NHL playoffs have started. You can bet on golf. The NFL regular season right around the corner. So it's not just daily fantasy, which is awesome. I highly encourage you to use DraftKings to play daily fantasy, but now you can bet on games. Download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app right now. Use the code HELIPOD when you sign up. For a limited time, all new users can get a sign-up bonus of up to $1,000. I'm not joking. DraftKings Sportsbook has a sign-up right now up to $1,000. Just enter the code HELIPOD, HELLIEPOD, when you sign up only at the DraftKings Sportsbook. And of course, Vuori. I've been talking about these clothes forever because I have been wearing them forever and absolutely love it. Athleisure wear at its finest, whether you're in yoga, riding the Peloton, walking your dog, hanging out at your house. Perhaps you're one of the lucky few who is getting on an airplane and traveling. It looks cool. It feels great. Everything from hoodies to joggers to shorts to board shorts if you're going to the beach. Great beach day here in California. I'll be throwing on my Vuori board shorts. I have 20% off, especially for you. VuoriClothing.com/helipod. That's VUORI clothing.com/helipod for 20% off today. I promise you, you're going to love it. And you know what else you're going to love? You're going to love our new episode of the Helipod today. Went to Bakersfield, California. It was 105 degrees and sat down with David Carr. It was story time at its finest. This guy has an absolute palace in Bakersfield. There's a football field out back. There's a big workout facility, a red barn where he brings guys in to work out. It's so nice that actually his brother Derek has brought members of the Raiders over the last few years to have workouts out there behind his house. Unbelievable pool. But enough about that. The stories were phenomenal. We went in depth on what Derek Carr is thinking going into this season with the Raiders, with Marcus Mariota as his backup. David, of course, the number one overall pick back in 2002. The expansion Houston Texans had an offensive line that probably could not have started for a major college. He was sacked a record 76 times. He talks about what was going through his head as a young football player, just really trying to survive as he went into each and every game. And he bounced around a little bit after that, ended up with the New York Giants as Eli Manning's backup, won a Super Bowl in 2011, had some pit stops with the San Francisco 49ers and Carolina Panthers along the way. So great chat with David Carr. It is the latest episode of the Helipod. Hope you love it. Starts right now, presented by Vuori. So we made the trek up to Bakersfield, California. Thank you.
Yeah,
I mean, it's funny. We get off the 5, we drive through some like strawberry fields and some cow pastures.
You're making it sound. Oh, you were gonna make it sound way too nice when you hit the cow pasture.
And we're like, wow, there's not a ton around here. And then we pull up to your pad and we see the whole spread and the workout facility in the background and the barn where you train a bunch of players. And now I get it, dude.
You got to kind of build your own oasis out here.
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't. When you show up, it's just dirt, and you got to kind of get creative with it. So, but it's my home, man. That's where my family is. That's where I grew up, and that's where I kind of knew I was always going to be. Honestly, is back out here because we were in New York, we were in Texas, we were in Charlotte, we were everywhere. We were in the Bay Area, And then we would just keep coming back and visiting, and we'd stay like for a week, and we'd stay for like 2 weeks, and then we're stuck in like my parents' a guest room with like 3 of us. And we're like, why don't I just buy a house here? And then when we come back, we'll have a place to stay. And that turned into, now we're in, dude.
Well, you have everybody, right? So your folks living here. Your brother's gonna build a house next door, and I mean, it's the Carr family business. Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's been fun. We used to drive around, me and my brother Darren, who's 3 years younger than me, and with my dad, we would look for fields to play on, and we would do this like for an hour after school, and like, oh no, someone's there. We'd go to the other park, someone's on the field there. And I'm like, if I ever have a chance, I'm just gonna build a big grass space, so we just have a place to play, and all the people that I know have a place to just go. And so that's what we have back here. We have a little 60-yard football field, and it's perfect because we have the high school kids come over. My kids always have a place to go. We never have to look for a field, and it's been awesome. So it just it also makes all the kids come here, so I can keep my eye on them.
Which is perfect, right? Because now you know what's going on.
Sometimes I don't like what I see, but at least I see it.
So we had your buddy Ryan Khalil on a couple of weeks ago. He was great, and I know we've talked about doing this for a while, so I'm glad we finally got a chance to do this. And I don't know that you've been able to listen to many of these, but we always kind of delve into the rookie year and how things progress. But before we start that, I just want to go into a couple of current events things.
Okay, perfect.
I would say I saw this article you wrote on NFL.com, but I know how this works for you guys,
what are you
writing the articles on NFL.com. But it was your top wide receiver duos.
Yeah, I know.
And, I mean, come on.
Look, dude, here's what happens, okay? I'm supposed to say provocative things.
Right?
That's what you get paid to do. And I'm not really a provocative guy. I'm just going to tell the truth. I'm going to tell the truth.
Right.
Like, I got a lot of heat, and I still get it from – I made a top 10 quarterback list, and Joe Montana was not on my top 10 all-time quarterback list. And it was mostly just because I liked Steve Young, and I thought he was better in the system. And I was like, I can leave Joe off. Little did I know.
You got crushed.
It was the worst idea ever. And so that kind of continued on. So I still kind of make that mistake. And, like, Cowboy fans are on Twitter, and they are on social media. Like, for the Cowboys not to be on that list the other day when I made that wide receiver duo, and my only argument was like, well, why isn't Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb, or Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup? I'm like, that's a trio. It's a trio. It's not a duo.
And by the way, CeeDee Lamb hasn't played a game yet.
He hasn't even played. How do we even know he's any good? Like, okay, yeah, he made a lot of plays in college, but like, what am I supposed to do? Just throw him up there with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and all these guys? I'm like, Michael Thomas and Sanders. I mean, he hasn't even caught a ball.
Well, you did. I found it very surprising. So here's the list, okay? So his number one duo is Julio and Calvin Ridley. That was the biggest surprise to me.
Yes.
Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, who both had over 1,100 yards, are number 3. Number 2, Woods and Kupp from the Rams, solid. Then you have Michael Thomas, Emmanuel Sanders, 4, and then D-Hop and Fitz, 5.
Yeah.
What did you get the most flack over?
Not having the Cowboys on it. Like, it doesn't matter what 2 Cowboys I picked, just not having them on there. They did not like that. And like everyone references the yards, like you can throw for a lot of yards when you're losing, So
Valid point. Yeah.
And they have a good offense. And like I even get nervous when I hear and I love Amari. Played with Derek. I love the kid. But like when he says, "Oh, we're gonna have 3,000-yard receivers," and I'm like, do you want that? Like, I'd rather have Zeke go for 2,000, and we win a lot of games.
Right.
So. Like, I don't really get the argument of the yards thing. But, I mean, there's a lot of good duos out there. I mean, I could have easily put Gallup and Amari on there. I mean, let's be honest. But it's just more fun to leave them off.
I'm just Evans and Godwin. Like, that's why Brady went to Tampa for those 2 dudes.
How's that not the greatest quarterback ever decide to go play football? There's a reason he went there. Yeah. It wasn't because he had the same receiving core that he had in New England. He's like, nope, those 2 guys, I'm going to play with them. Easy.
And were you consciously leaving Odell and Jarvis off? Or
so like I had them on the list, and I really think the Browns are going to be like last year. There was a lot of hype for the Browns, and I wasn't really feeling it. And I'm not saying that I'm not a Freddie Kitchens fan, but I think that pairing was always kind of sketchy for me with him and Baker.
It was too much too soon, right?
Yeah, it was way too much too soon, and it was almost too much hype and too much noise. But like when Kevin Stefanski came in, I think they're going to have a fantastic year. And so, like, I actually had Jarvis and Odell on the list, but then I don't remember who I even pulled them for. I think I pulled them for the Saints, for Michael Thomas and Sanders.
And Emmanuel Sanders.
Yeah, because Michael Thomas he's just pretty fantastic.
Yeah,
so
and Emmanuel Sanders is solid number two.
And he's with Drew Brees, so he's gonna have big plays. He's gonna get his yards. So I mean, I could have easily put the Browns and the Cowboys on there, but you only get 5. Now, see, that's the trick. If they say 7, it's easy. No one cares about the list.
And they don't want it to be the obvious 5. You do need to have some talkers on there.
Of course, yeah, because then otherwise it doesn't get any attention. It's not fun.
Oh, see, there you go. You're getting this TV thing after 4 or 5 years.
And then, like, as far as the article thing too, it was funny that you even brought that up because you know how it works.
Oh, of course.
So I went to Fresno State. Okay, there's no. I don't have to whisper here, but like we're not. It's
not Harvard.
One of those, places where you're like, oh wow, and so everyone's like, you wrote that article. And it's almost like you can actually write. And sometimes it's my teachers from like, because I see people like in Bakersfield that like, my 5th grade teacher, she's like, you wrote that article. I'm like, no, thank you for the backhanded compliment, but no, I did not.
Well, the funny thing is, and I'll say this because I know he probably hasn't listened to an episode of the Heli Pod since he was on the very first one, Willie McGinnis, but you tell Willie that, dude, you didn't write that. He gets angry. Like Willie, be like,
oh yeah,
oh come on, of course I know how it works.
Willie, come on, dude. You know.
You told them who you wanted. They put it together.
What happened is they wrote it, they sent it to you, and you were like, kind of saw it early in the morning. You're like, that looks good. Yeah, go for it.
You might have changed the 2 to the 3 or the 3 to the 4.
No, I flipped those guys. Yeah, that's fine. Now can I send it in?
All right, a few more current events things. Brady to the Bucs, something that we're all going to be obviously monitoring all season long.
Yeah.
Are you more interested in how Brady's going to do with the Bucs or how Bill and the Patriots are going to do without Brady and Cam's going to do with the Patriots?
I don't know, man. I'm kind of split. I think that the easiest thing to see is kind of like how Brady's going to play offensive football. Like that's pretty. I think he's going to go to Tampa Bay, and Bruce Arians and Byron Leftwich have already said our offense is pretty adaptable. We can make it whatever we want it to be, and that kind of opens them up to, hey, Tom, what do you want to run? So we kind of know what we're going to get there, and so you see him bring in like Shady, you see him bring in Gronk. Godwin's going to play more inside in that Edelman type role. So I can almost like see what Tampa Bay's offense is going to be, and I think it's going to be pretty good. Like they're going to play inside out, they'll play matchups. They got a lot of pieces. Now the offensive line is a little sketchy. I'm a little concerned about that, but Brady will get it out of his hand. I mean, he'll just find ways.
He's played with offensive lines that haven't been great before.
He'll find a way. They'll just speed it up. They'll use screens. They'll smoke and mirrors. So I kind of know what that's going to look like. What I don't know is what it's going to be like in New England. I think that's going to be interesting. And I also think that the Cam Newton thing is so intriguing to me because when I watch Belichick, we've always talked about it, he's one of the greatest X's and O's guys ever, right? Defensively, offensively, he finds a way to find that advantage. And the one thing that he hasn't been able to do with Brady there is utilize the quarterback as that extra guy in the run. And that's like the ultimate advantage. And when you look at college football and you look at what the Ravens have done and you see how they're utilizing the quarterback in the run game, I have to imagine Belichick's been wanting to do this for 5 years, 10 years. Like, just give me a guy that I can now, because we sit in quarterback rooms. I remember we'd sit there with Eli in New York. And we'd spend our whole day trying to figure out how to get that 6th and 7th guy out of the box. Mm-hmm. So we can hand it off and then watch our running back run. But when the quarterback is involved in that, now that 6-man box with 5 blockers and the quarterback and the running back able to run, it's a level playing field. There's no extra body. So now Cam Newton's involved in the run game. I have to think that he's healthy. I'm saying he's healthy, he's energized, he's ready to go run the football. Like, you don't go get Cam Newton if you're Bill Belichick to ask him to play Norv Turner style offense. You go get him to run the football and be that guy. If he does it for a year, great. If he can do it for 2 or 3 or longer, even better. But that's what we're going to do with him. We're going to utilize that matchup. So that's what I'm interested to see. I think Belichick's, he couldn't be happier. Now he's losing a lot of guys on defense. Right. Like if they had last year's defense, then I would think this would be a team that would be almost guaranteed a playoff spot. But I just don't know what that's going to look like.
Well, you lose a couple of starters on defense.
It's going to be different.
You lose your right tackle.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's 8 guys total, 6 or 8 guys that they've lost that have.
They'll have the advantage X's and O's wise on the offensive side. And Josh McDaniels did this in 2010 with Tim Tebow. Like, he drafted Tim to run this style of offense. So he's wanted to do this for a decade. Now he's got Cam Newton, an ex-MVP that, is seemingly healthy and wants to do this.
And Cam can obviously spin it as well.
And Willie gave me a hard time because I used Tim Tebow and Cam Newton in the same sentence.
That's my initial reaction.
No, and I get it, but I'm thinking of it more of a matchup standpoint, where the quarterback's involved in the run game.
Like, you have to account for him running the football.
Yeah, you have to
every single play,
every snap. So that extra guy has to be there. And now all those receivers that we said weren't any good that Brady left are now in one-on-one situations. And every receiver I've ever met can win one-on-ones if they're NFL level receiver. So, now N'Keal Harry and Sanu and Edelman, like all these guys are now in one-on-one situations. They're gonna chop it up. They're gonna beat these guys. And so it's gonna be really interesting, man. If their defense is any good at all, if they can be a top half of the league defense, they're a playoff team.
Which you would think, even though they're missing a couple of starters, they should be able,
I think
able to do that.
Yeah.
More success in year one, Tua or Joe Burrow?
I think it depends on when they get on the field. I really get nervous for Burrow just because of where he's at and just the history of that and knowing Carson Palmer and talking to him. And I'm not saying that it's a bad organization. I just think that there have historically been difficult there. And when it's hard to get free agent guys in, it's hard to keep guys there. Can you have the longevity and the success? And hopefully you can. But Joe Burrow he's Carson Palmer was talented. Andy Dalton's talented. Like, he's going to have to find an edge. Like, what is that edge that he has? Is it preparation? Is it just incredible accuracy that he showed at LSU? What is that? Now he has the pieces. He has wide receivers. He's got the back. Zach Taylor's got to step his game up. For me, like, I watched them X's and O's wise. We watched Sean McVay, and I watched your Helipod with Sean McVay. He's a wizard of offensive football. And, Zach's from that mold, but I didn't see the same things, when I watched Cincinnati last year. So they're going to have to ramp that up too and create some offense for your quarterback because you can't just ask him to go out there and make a winning throw every time. So that's where I get concerned. I'm not concerned about his talent. I'm not concerned about his work ethic. I think he's a good football player. It's all those surrounding pieces. And then so when you go to Tua, I think Tua has a chance to be successful. I like their head coach. I like that they brought in Chan Gailey. Chan Gailey's been running RPOs since like 1970. Like, he almost invented that stuff. Like, couldn't really bring it in the NFL game, but wanted to. And I've talked to Chan, and I know Fitz. And
did you
Fitz,
have Chan in your career?
No, I didn't. But we had a lot of the same. We met in a lot of the same circles. Like, my offensive coordinator in Houston was one of his good friends. So he would come out and he would visit us and he would hang out and he would talk ball when he didn't have a job, or like, how coaches are. Sometimes they're out of a
rounds.
job. Yeah. So, but I'd see him a lot, and we would talk about, and he always wanted to advance the offensive system. Like, you remember, he was the Wildcat guy. Like, he's always that guy.
That's a good point.
So I think that Tua's got a chance to play earlier. Maybe not earlier than Joe. Joe's going to be the starter, but like earlier than probably we expect. I think that when he goes out there and he's in that kind of up-tempo Alabama, style college offense, that gives you the opportunity to play better earlier, instead of trying to sit back there and decipher what all the 11 defenders are doing, what the defensive scheme is. In that kind of offense, you just snap it and go. So I think he can play earlier, and I like his skill set. I think Tua, if his hip is fine, he's incredibly gifted, so he's going to be just fine. I think Miami might be better, honestly, than Cincinnati. So I think Miami got a chance.
Are we going to see incredibly sloppy football the first couple of weeks with no preseason games?
I don't know, man. Like, I'm watching. I'm a big Dodger fan, and like, these guys are batting below 200, except for the other night, and they're winning games. And it's kind of sloppy. They didn't have like the normal offseason. They kind of broke the season in half and then started over again. So I kind of started thinking about that. Is that going to be the same for quarterbacks or offensive football? And I think for some teams it will be. I think some teams it's going to be incredibly sloppy. But I think there's other teams, and this year in particular, I think there's a huge advantage for guys that have had a relationship with their coordinator or play caller.
And been there.
Yeah. Because I'll talk to some guys, we'll do interviews with them on the network, and they haven't touched a playbook, or they've kind of seen it through the virtual space. They haven't been one-on-one with their guys until they show up to training camp. So they didn't do anything all off season until they show up, and now they're in kind of this OTA mode. Like, how do you develop any chemistry there? Then I talk to my brother, or I see what Brady's doing, and these guys have had 50 practices, like, together, and they've been able to have the coach relay the information to the quarterback, and he literally takes an offensive script out there, and they've been running full practices in the desert in Vegas for like 2 months,
Oh, wow.
And so if you have that opportunity and you have that guy, then you have a huge advantage, I think. So I think that there's going to be some sloppy football, but with the veteran guys, I think there's going to be a bigger gap, where it's usually like, oh, we love parity. I think there's going to be some really bad teams. I think there's going to be some really good teams.
Interesting. Yeah, because the NFL is built around parity, right?
Yeah, everybody's 8-8. And then if you're a little bit better, you go to the playoffs. If you're not, you go home. So
you brought up your brother. Was it harder for you to read and hear criticism about you as a player or about your brother now?
By far him, because, for me, I felt like I could do something about it, or I knew like 100% whose fault it was, or like, in each situation, I'm like, well, that wasn't my fault. So like the critique would be like, oh, that wasn't.
You wouldn't
really,
even worry about it.
Can't really do anything about that, But like for him, I can watch it on film, I can talk to him, but it's just one of those things. Like quarterback's so hard because you have to win. It all comes down to winning. It doesn't matter. Like if you look at his numbers last year, and then when you even talk to Derek, he's like, I felt as good last year as I have my entire career. My MVP season in 2016, I played a lot better this year than I did then.
Is that right?
Yeah, and he'll tell you that. And so you're like, okay, so it's a lot of it's just, it comes down to you're 7-9, right? So you didn't get in the playoffs. And so that's what it really is. Team, you got to win. You got to get in the playoffs. You got to win Super Bowls. That's what you're ultimately, looked at as far as a quarterback goes. So for him, he just got to get that done. And I think they have the guys around him now. Offensive line stacked, running game's good. You got all the pieces. You add a Ruggs and you think, okay, is he that big of a game changer? And I think if you get a guy like that, it just makes everyone else better. Now, Tyrell Williams doesn't have to go against the number 1 guy. Now he's going against the number 2 guy. Now
right.
Hunter Renfrow doesn't have to go against the number 1 or number 2 guy. He's going against their third nickel or maybe a linebacker. So everybody gets better matchup-wise, because at the end, that's what it's all about. When you're looking at it from a quarterback perspective, is your matchups. We were talking about Brady earlier. Like that's why he picked Evans and Godwin, because those guys are matchup guys. Now I plug Gronk in. That's a third guy that I have a matchup with. So you find those pieces, and if you have them, you have a chance. And they got a chance if their defense can get them the ball back. I mean, because when you look at it, you can put Brady and Derek's numbers up last year against each other, and Derek's were a lot better. But Brady gets huge contract. He goes to Tampa Bay, and he's the savior of the world. Derek's like, oh, should he even be the quarterback here? So it's kind of a weird dynamic, but you got to win football games. What it comes down to.
You feel it so well because we lean on you and have, when we would do shows together and let's talk about Derek. Let's get Derek on. Let's do this.
Yeah.
And you always handled that really well. And the most recent question was when he said, I'm tired of being disrespected. And I was watching that day, and you said, well, yeah, I disrespect him, of course. You have to think about, and I know we do pre-show meetings and stuff, like how you're going to answer these questions in a way where your job is to be an analyst.
Yep.
But it's your brother.
Yeah, it's hard, man.
It's not easy.
No, it's really difficult. It's probably the hardest part of my job is even when like a question is brought up, like the best wide receiver duo. I'm like, well, there's 2 guys in Vegas that are pretty good. And that's like my initial, like, why aren't you talking about the Raiders? It's my article. They're number 1. And then I'm like, okay.
Can't do that.
I can't do that. There goes your credibility. So I just try to be honest. Like I try to imagine that Derek is going to hear the answer, and he is. He's going to hear what I say. He watches my show. Everybody, even though the players say they don't pay attention, they know, because I'll see guys and they'll be like, hey, remember when you said this about me in March? I'm like, nope, but sorry. I don't remember that, but I guess I did. So yeah, you just got to be honest. I mean, that's when it comes down to it, is I just try and be as honest as possible, and I try and tell both sides. Like disrespected, yeah, I get why Derek said he's disrespected, because when you talk to guys inside that building, and I talk to John Gruden or I talk to Mike Mayock, they absolutely love him, and so he gets that, and then outside there's he shouldn't even be the quarterback here, but these guys are telling him that he's a quarterback forever here. So it's like there's 2 different things going on. So he's like, I feel disrespected, and some people say, well, he's feeling disrespected by his team. It's not his team. It's the outside noise that you just inevitably hear, because your phone is literally on you nonstop. So you have to see it, because if you don't see it, your wife's going to see it, or your brother's going to see it, and not me. My other brother, he'll text Derek, hey, what, did you see this? Like, dude,
Darren,
stop. Or my kids, my crazy children will like put out a tweet that someone said, like in this group text where Derek and my other brother and me and them, we're all on the same one. I'm like, guys, you can't put that on the phone. He's going to see it. Like, and then we got this whole issue going. So it's like, it's just a nonstop process. But yeah, so you just try and find the balance and just tell people, because people can see if you're genuine. Like if I'm trying to blow smoke and say, no, Derek's the greatest ever and there's no problems with the Raiders, like they're going to be like, whatever. I'm not listening to this guy. But if you're honest about it and you're like, hey, guess what? The defense didn't play good enough last year. Offense, they could have made some more big plays. They have holes here and here and here. And you're just honest about it. People kind of respect you for it, and then it's fine.
Well, it's almost like chum in the water for Darren, right? Your
Oh,
other
goodness.
brother. Like he'll go at people on Twitter.
Yeah, Darren does not care. Yeah, and he's like, and the best thing Twitter's ever done is not giving him a blue check mark, because that's all he wants is verification. And so that's honestly why you get all this heat. So if they're smart, if Twitter was smart, they would just leave the blue check mark off. Don't mess with Dcar75 or whatever his Twitter name is, and just let him keep throwing heat, because man, if you even like whisper that you have, I'm not sure about the Raiders, like he's going to come.
He'll come at you.
100. Yeah, that's him, dude. He's a pit bull.
What was, I did the Titans preseason games. Last year. They bring Tannehill in. Mariota's the guy and has been the guy there for a long time. Now Mariota's in Vegas.
Yep.
They're paying him $8 million to be a backup.
Yeah.
What were Derek's thoughts when that went down?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, him and Marcus, they've known each other for a while, and they get along really well, and they talk a lot. And Marcus it was really funny because, I'll be honest, just like I was on our show when they initially asked me about it, and it's not just because Derek's my brother, but like when Marcus signed with the Raiders, I'm in the position where I have to give my honest analytical opinion about it. And I'm like, well, that's not really a good fit. And like I said that and people got upset. I'm like, well, it's just like Marcus needs to be in a situation where he can run an offense similar to what Lamar Jackson runs. Like I watched Marcus in college and I've talked to him about
electric.
This. Yeah, man, like he's dynamic and he needs to be involved in that type of offense. When he was in Tennessee, like you saw, firsthand, you saw Ryan Tannehill when he went in. He's a pocket passer. Now, Ryan can scoot and he can move and extend plays, but, that went through Derrick Henry, and that was throwing one-on-ones out there to A.J. Brown and those guys. And it didn't really fit Marcus's ability, And I think if Marcus is going to get the most out of his career, whether it's in Vegas or wherever it is, they got to utilize him like that, And if he gets a chance to play in Vegas, I hope they do that for him because he deserves it. And Derek will be the first one to tell you that. But, they paid him a lot of money because he's a good quarterback. And you got to have guys that can step in and win games for you. That's what John said to Derek before they even did it. We're going to add a quarterback. They haven't done it. They've had a chance 5 times in the last couple of years in the first round to add a quarterback in the draft. They haven't done it. But they do need a guy because I was at practice just 2 years ago in training camp. And I got thrown into 7-on-7. Because the backup quarterbacks couldn't complete a ball.
With the Raiders?
With the Raiders in 7-on-7. Like, John's like, Dave, get in here. And I'm like, nope.
Stop it.
Yeah, and I swear this happens, right? So we're in the spring, right? It's not training, it's in the spring. I'm up there just hanging out. Me and my dad are out there, and he's like, get in here. And I'm like, no. He's like, go. And he was mad at ex-quarterback. I'm not going to tell you who it is, but he's no longer on the team because he couldn't complete a pass in 7-on-7. Of course, I checked the ball down like 2 or 3 times. I'm like, let's just get out of here without an embarrassing situation. But like he wanted a guy that if Derek got hurt, they could go in there and still win games. So you got to pay for veterans like that, and Marcus is definitely one of those guys.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard, dude.
He's a crazy man. John Gruden he's awesome. Like, but like okay, so the best way to explain John, and I'll say this if he's right here, like a lot of people like when they're on TV, they always tell you like, hey, bump the energy up. Like right before our show would start, hey, energy up, energy up. He is way over the top energy up guy. He almost has to dial it back down to look like a normal person on TV. Like Monday Night Football, like he had to maybe look like he was a normal person and he would still come off kind of crazy. He's completely crazy in real life. Like away from the cameras, insane, throw an analyst brother into 7-on-7 in NFL practice that hasn't taken a snap in 5 years crazy.
Were you a little nervous even on the check?
Oh my goodness. I was like, the ball's going to slip out of my hand. Like I don't have my cleats on. Like, and then so he threw me out there to throw pat and go. Like I've done it several times now. Like he'll see me out on the sideline. He's like, Dave, come here and get a snap. Show these guys how to get a snap. Like, I'm not going to get a snap. I'm never taking a snap from this guy in my life. Rodney, we going to be all right, Hudson? Okay, good. He's nuts, man. He's awesome. Derek loves him.
That's incredible. How has the transition to Vegas been? And tell me about the workouts. Like, does he find a field? Like, how does that?
Yeah.
How does that go down?
So they moved out there. Actually, so when the COVID thing happened, they took their kids out of school. His youngest son was in preschool, kindergarten, and he ended up coming home. They're like, well, let's go to Vegas. We're going to go anyway eventually. So they ended up moving out there, and then players started coming, and he's like, well, we got to get some workouts in. We can't work out at the facility. They wouldn't even let them on the field. They got brand new grass fields out there. They can't use it. So they would go out at like 6 o'clock in the morning to these random parks, and they would have to alternate parks because people would figure out that they were going to be there.
Right.
And so they'd show up, and the news cameras would show up. So they jumped around to like 5 or 6 different parks in the Vegas area, Henderson and surrounding areas, and you never knew where they were going to be. And that's kind of what they had to do for like a month and a half, 2 months. And so what they would do is Derek would have a meeting with John like the night before. They'd go over a script, get some ideas together, and then Derek would just take that practice script out. And eventually at the end, they had 30 or 40 guys out there that were in Vegas just practicing, and it was totally legal and fine because they're just out there trying to get work in, but it was a full team. Like they would have full 7-on-7, full team periods. And it was really interesting to watch, but it was also kind of funny to watch him kind of try and avoid, the crowds and stuff. And kind
Oh,
of
I can
bounce
totally
around.
relate.
They'd
As
go out-
local media is trying to track, okay, where are they going to be? They could be here, they could be there.
Yeah, and they would try and get a pattern. They had a helicopter one time over.
Did they
It was
really?
crazy, man. Yeah. Cool.
Would they have lookouts that would?
Yeah, so they had like people that would go out early and be like, okay, like so he had a camera guy that kind of does a lot of Instagram stuff for him, and kind of you'll see him like shoot some of the stuff for Derek and some of the other guys. And he would go out early, like sit out there like 4:30 in the morning, like waiting for the sun to come up, and then like, okay, all right, we're good. You guys come on out, so everybody, wah, for 2 hours, and then they'd disappear before 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. So it worked out good.
So, no fans for the Raiders. They've already announced that, as have several other teams. Is the black hole going to be right here during the season, or will you guys will there be able to have family members in the suites and stuff like that?
Yeah, I don't know. We've kind of tried to talk about that with Heather, with Derek's wife, to see what they're going to even allow out there, and what she's heard so far is nothing's happening. Like, so Mark Davis isn't going to the game, like no one's going to the game, so that's kind of where they're at right now.
Right.
So it'll be packed here. Like, we're open for business. So
that's
amazing. If you want to come out and be a part of the
Yeah,
black
dude.
hole,
There's good viewing area in there.
Face mask.
I love that.
It would be good.
All right. Well, I've asked you enough questions about Derek, so I want to get it.
It's good.
It's great. I think it's awesome, and I know how excited your family is, and I love seeing your excitement level when you talk about him. And
It's gonna be fun.
it's funny every time I'm on another podcast or talking about football. Whenever Derek comes up, especially now with Marcus, because I know Marcus a little bit. Like, I hope Marcus does great, but I hope he doesn't see the field. Like, I want Derek to do. I want the Raiders to do well in Vegas.
Yeah, I think it'll be fun. I mean, if they can all stay healthy, they got a chance, and that's what they even asked Derek the other day, and he was like, "Did you think about opting out?" And he's like, "Absolutely not. Like, there's not an option at this point. Like, we had a lot to prove, and like he's kind of, and even like the Kobe thing, when the Kobe thing happened, like that was Derek's guy. Like,
I know how much he looked
Bryant,
up to Kobe. Yeah.
So like he was playing no matter what. Yeah, if there was two teams out there.
And what is he doing? He's going to wear a Kobe arm sleeve?
He's wearing an arm sleeve. So it's funny, man. He in our little group text that we got with my boys in there, and Darren, my other brother, his son, he's like, all right, you guys help me pick the outfit. And it's like almost like a Madden like creative player. So like he was at the facility, he threw a helmet on, he'd throw a jersey on, throw some pants on, he'd just stand there. And like he would do like a little spin, and we'd like, no, that one's trash. No, that helmet looks stupid. You look like Darth Vader. Like, give me another one. So he'd like put another helmet on, and then like when he pulled the sleeve on, we were like, that's it, man. Yeah, it's Kobe. You got to wear the sleeve. He's like,
that's awesome.
I got to wear the sleeve. So
was this like a FaceTime call? He's just
it
doing a
was
little
cool.
modeling show?
Yeah, so he would do like a little model, and then like he'd put the phone down, like change an outfit real quick, flip it back up, and like we'd be like, yeah, that's cool. Now take the shoes off. Those shoes are trash. Like put some other shoes on. So yeah, it's pretty sweet.
That's amazing. Yeah. Quick break now. Tell you a little bit about some of our sponsors. Vaco. The motto there, we invest in your career so you are here for the duration of ours. Vaco is a premier talent and solutions firm that finds boutique-level service with global reach in the areas of consulting, consultative project resources, executive search, permanent placement, and strategic staffing. You need somebody to fill that C-suite position? Vaco has you covered. Their areas of expertise are aplenty: accounting, finance, technology, healthcare IT, operations administration, or international managed services. It was founded back in 2002 by a good buddy of mine, Brian Waller, and one of his friends, and it has grown since then to serve 40 markets, 1,000 employees, 5,000 consultants, and $750 million in revenue. Been very fun to watch my good buddy Waller grow his company, and grow it he has. Check him out at vaco.com. That's VACO.com for more information on how Vaco connects people to their dream jobs and helps leading companies around the world find talent to grow their business. Vaco.com, VACO.com. They can help you. So I started taking this product, True Niagen, about a month ago. Really wanted to invest in my long-term health, and I think you should too. It's a new trend in the scientific community that surrounds the health of our cells. And this affects everybody, from pro athletes to weekend warriors like most of us. We have something in our cells called NAD, which supports our energy and our body's ability to repair itself all the way down to the cellular level. Well, it turns out that NAD declines as we age. It also declines when we overexercise, we don't sleep enough, and even when we're exposed to a virus. There's only one NAD booster that is backed by Nobel Prize-winning scientists, 10 published human studies, and regulatory approval for safety, and that is True Niagen. Additionally, True Niagen is NSF certified for sport. Visit TrueNiagen.com, TrueNiagen.com to learn more, and I think it will help you all the way down to the cellular level. It's made me feel pretty good over the last month. Check out True Niagen. And finally, I want to tell you about Greens Plus, a company based here in Manhattan Beach, a health food leader since 1989, really known for creating the first ever blended green superfood powder that you can just dump into a smoothie, has all kinds of nutrients that are just fantastic for your body, and it tastes great. Also, Greens Plus bars, incredibly tasty as well. Helps boost your energy, get you that nutritional insurance that your body deserves, and it's all organic, gluten-free, soy-free, premium green superfoods. You can get them at Whole Foods, Amazon, or if you want to save a little money, go to greensplus.com and you get 20% off with the promo code HELLY. That's 20% off with the promo code HELLY, HELLIE, at greensplus.com. I love the chocolate protein bars and the wild berry superfood powder. Growing up in Bakersfield, was it always Fresno? And refresh my memory.
Yeah.
I can't remember what level of recruit you were coming out of high school.
It was kind of weird. I wasn't like one of the top recruits, but like, so Scott Lanahan was in Washington, who was eventually the offense coordinator in Dallas. He was up there, and so he saw me. And
At UW?
At UW, yeah.
Okay.
And so he saw me and liked me and offered me a scholarship. And then UCLA did the same thing, but no other Pac-10 schools at the time. And a couple other schools back in the Midwest, but like Colorado, and like it was kind of weird. And then Fresno was interested, and then they weren't, and they were kind of going through a change where Jim Sweeney was the coach for a long time, and then he retired. So like the recruiting thing kind of, I just got lost in the shuffle, and Pat Hill came in, and no one called me for like 2 months after the season was over. And I was like, I kind of want to go to Fresno. I mean, Washington's cool and Scott's pretty sweet, and UCLA, I've always wanted to go there, but I'll probably be like the third or fourth guy and have to work, because I wasn't a top 5, recruit or whatever. So I was kind of waiting for Fresno to call me, and we lived there for a while. I went to school there in junior high. I met Trent Dilfer, who was the quarterback there when I was in junior high, at my buddy's house. He just came over and talked to a bunch of us at this little FCA thing, and it was pretty sweet. And I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. So he would invite us out to practice. So I was always a Bulldog fan. And then when I was getting ready to sign, I was literally getting on a plane to go to Washington, and I was probably going to sign there because I felt I had the best chance to play, and Scott was like the most, as far as just being aggressive, like he was on me. Like he would talk to me like almost every week. So I was like, well, he seems like he's interested, so we'll go. And I was like, right before we got on the plane, we're going the next day, I was like, Dad, just call Fresno and see if they're even like interested. So he calls, and Pat Hill literally answers the phone, and all the calls were being directed to his cell phone. He had just got off a plane, and he was in LA. And he's like, don't leave, I'm coming to your house. So he drives to our house, and so he's there the next morning at like 8 o'clock in the morning. We're having breakfast, hanging out. He comes in with his little duffel bag, and it's like duct taped up. He's got his little Fu Manchu, and the most like aggressive, like just my mom was like completely turned off by this guy. She's like, you're not playing for him.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, she didn't like Pat at all. And but my dad was like, this guy's the one. It was so funny,
you have
man.
those polar opposite views of the same dude.
And it was just, because he was eating off my mom's plate, like he was just like grabbing her drink, and like I'm like looking at him like, this dude's literally insane.
He didn't care. He was just
didn't
nuts.
care. No, he's like, I'm an offensive lineman. Like I want to protect your son. Like that's when my dad was like, okay, offensive line, got it. And that's what he built. Like so, we signed with him. Like I was like, yeah, I'll come play with you. He's like, perfect. And he's like, okay, can you guys come up tomorrow? And I was like, sure. So we went up to Fresno, and then like a couple other guys came in that I talked to, and then Pat was like, oh, this guy was going to go to Washington, and he signed up with us. Like you got to come. So we kind of put together this little squad. And then 5 years later, we have a pretty good run, and we're like top 10 in the nation with those same guys, like the same 10 or 12 guys we recruited like that week. Like of me just like,
that's special.
I'll come play with that guy. Like he would snap to me like in live team drills, like no pads. And just because the center wasn't doing his job and he wanted to instill toughness, we would do live goal line like on game day if the warm-up wasn't going good. Like every guy's just warming up.
That's unheard of.
No, we're just warming up. We're just, no, this warm-up's not intense enough. Live goal line. Like we're standing there like Air Forces on the other side. Like they're just kind of like watching us like, these guys are insane. They're full speed tackle, like right on the field, right before the game. But he was great, man. He instilled like a toughness and like a competitiveness that we'd play. That was his motto, is like we'd play anybody, anywhere. And we did. Like my last year, we ended up playing Oregon State They were number 1 in the nation. They just beat Notre Dame in the Fiesta Bowl the year before. They had everybody. Dennis Erickson comes in, and we beat them at home. Then we played Colorado, beat Wisconsin in Camp Randall, and we were like sitting around like we're 8-0. We're like, oh my gosh,
This is real.
This is real. And then I couldn't go to school anymore because like I'd go to school and like
You get mobbed.
Sports Illustrated, like my philosophy teacher like hands me like 30 like Sports Illustrated's like, hey, will you sign these for me? I'm like, do I get an A in the class?
30 of them?
We won't answer what happened, but
Yeah, of course
I signed the Sports Illustrateds for him. Yeah, and it was all good. So it was just hard to even go to school because like the whole town went literally insane,
Right.
you know? And then, yeah, it was a great ride.
Was that the best year of football you ever had?
It was definitely the most, just like because the emotions were just so crazy. You know, because college football already is like an emotional thing.
Yeah.
And it's so community based. And I would have like, just speaking of like living back at home, like I'd have like my teachers from 3rd grade there. I'd have like my buddies from high school, like that went to school with me here in Bakersfield. They would come up, so there'd be 20 of them, and then all these people would be on the ramp. Like they're all there as I go down. Like here's my teacher, here's my buddies.
Oh, that's pretty
Here's
sweet.
my soon-to-be wife. Here's my here's my family, and let's go play for 50,000 of them. And it was just nuts, man. So yeah, and that was probably the best year for sure.
So after that year, it's 2002. The Texans were an expansion team.
Yeah, lucky me.
At what point did you know you were going to be the number 1 guy?
So Chris Palmer is the offensive coordinator, and Charlie Casually, who we both know, they started coming around to the games, and they probably came to like 2 or 3 of my games. Then they came to my Michigan State. I played Michigan State in the bowl game. I threw for like 600 yards, and it was just like crazy. It was back and forth, like 50 to something. Like we lost, but we had so much fun. Like it was raining, and I met him after the game, and I was like, "There's no way they have to pick me." That's like in my head. That's what I was thinking.
That game,
like I literally completed every pass. Like I don't know what else I'm supposed to do. And like I just remember like having that much confidence talking to them, like just shaking their hand, like I'm gonna be your quarterback, right? Like that's kind of what I was thinking. I'm a little kid from Fresno. Like Julius Peppers is out there. I'm
right.
like, who am I supposed to be to say stuff like this? But yeah, and then so I don't know, probably a month before the draft actually happened, I'd gone to the Senior Bowl, did the scouting combine. Charlie Casually takes me out to dinner, and he's like, we're gonna get the contract done. We're gonna take you. And this was probably a month before the draft even happened. So we moved out to Texas, and we got a house, and I started working out there. And then we flew actually to the draft with the owner of the team, and got picked, and
wow.
and then
with
flew back with him. Yeah.
And so you get there, and like you said, you're this guy from Bakersfield and then Fresno, and you weren't, this 5-star recruit coming out, but now all of a sudden you're the number 1 pick. You get a signing bonus, and I can't remember where I read this or saw this. It was one of your old interviews. I can't remember if it was 11 or 14 million. Did you really have a conversation with your dad saying you're going to go cash the check or something?
I think that what I wanted to do is make sure that the money didn't disappear, because we're from Bakersfield, right? So stuff tends to walk away sometimes. So I was like, I think the best thing I can do is just cash this check and then just keep the money in the house somewhere. Like literally, that's how naive I was. We'll just stash in the walls. We'll just find a secret compartment. I watched too many movies when I was
too many heist movies.
Oh my gosh, dude, I love heist movies. So that's probably what happened. But yeah, no, I'm sure that I was not prepared for all of that. Like I was down to play football and all that stuff was great, but like everything else, I was just a kid from Bakersfield just trying to survive on McDonald's, man. I wasn't ready for that.
But you were married. You already had a kid, or
yeah, we
two
had
kids?
one. Yeah, we had Austin. Yeah.
So at least you had that.
Yeah,
you weren't going to Houston like this, bachelor, like going out.
No, that would have been crazy.
Yeah.
I don't even know how guys go to the NFL single. Like honestly, at this point, like it's almost impossible. Right? I'm sure they have a lot of fun, but it's like it would have been so difficult. So for me, having my wife and Austin there. And then we grew our family. Like that was great for me. Like if I wouldn't have had that during that time, that would have been very difficult because we were not very good. Like it was a tough situation. Like there were times where, a year in, halfway through that season, I'm like, football shouldn't be this hard. Like it's never really been this difficult. Like we maybe need to think of something else. And like having those thoughts, I'd never had those thoughts before. Like maybe let's try and figure something else out.
Midway through the first season.
Midway through. I've been sacked 40 times in like 6 games. I'm like, this is really difficult. I remember telling my wife, I was like, I don't know what else to do. Like, I'm trying to do everything I can physically. I've always had a pretty good work ethic. I'm trying to prepare mentally as well as I can for a 22-year-old kid that doesn't really know how to prepare. But, like, I didn't know what else to do. And so, like, you're at a point where, okay, this is it, right? Like, can't get any better. I guess I just have to get good players around me. Like, but I didn't know at the time. Like, I just thought I was in the NFL. Everyone's good.
Right.
We got good players. Why aren't we winning?
You were on pace at one point that rookie year to be sacked 100 times. and obviously it ends up 76, which is still, a record to this day. How did you make it through that? How did you get through that season with your head intact?
I remember as my offensive line coach was like, they probably would sack you 100 times if you weren't so fast. I'm like, thanks, dude. We were about to go play the Redskins with Bruce Smith, and Darryl Green was still playing. But Bruce ended up getting me for the 76 sack. I think he has the record, the final one that got me. But, how did I make it through there? Just my family and my faith, and just knowing that I was supposed to be where I was. Now, maybe it's going to be really difficult, but I was never one to kind of run and hide or quit anything. I was sure I had for me to even have the thoughts of maybe this isn't for me, that's really difficult, because I was never allowed to even have those thoughts, and growing up, my dad didn't raise me that way. So
right.
It was a difficult situation, because it was really like a helpless time where I didn't know what else to do, like physically, mentally. There has to be something more I can do. Like, I felt like I could do all the physical things required. Maybe I didn't know all the mental things, but I knew where the protection breakdowns were happening. I knew where to go with the football, but it was just like, at some points, I'd get hit by 5 and 6 guys at one time. It's like, I can't really spin out of that one, So what do I do in this situation? And Charlie was great. Charlie even told me, like, we started working together on the NFL Network, and he was like, you know what? And this was 15 years later, but he was like, if I would have known that we couldn't have protected you, I wouldn't have picked you there. I would have let you go to Carolina at number 2, and we would have taken Julius, and we would have built our defense and kind of got a veteran guy in there. And I'm like, oh, now you tell me. Thanks, man.
Well, of course, the issue was they got Baselli in the supplemental draft, and he couldn't play.
Yeah, he came out with his robot arm. Like, we tried to put him out there, in OTAs, and they built this crazy brace for him. And the guy couldn't move. Like, he couldn't even move his arm. So, like, the thing was, like, stuck, like, in, like, a good position. And, like, I remember our rookie, like, undrafted guy comes off the edge and just kind of knocks his arm down and runs by and tags me. And I'm like, this isn't gonna work.
Might not be good.
And Tony wanted to go. Like, it wasn't his fault. Like,
couldn't go.
He just couldn't go, Like, he wants to use his arm. He can't use it. So he was an all-pro player that would have – we spent a lot of time together in the offseason getting to know each other, and, like, man, this is going to be great. You're going to solidify the left side. We ended up getting – I think it was Ryan Young that was going to play the right side, and then we looked like we had a decent offensive line. Then he got hurt. We flipped Ryan over. Ryan got hurt in the first preseason game, so he's out. So both my tackles are gone. So now we started 4 rookies, and then one veteran guy on the offensive line. It was rough, brother.
You had one, I don't even remember who it was, but your starting left guard that season never played an NFL game again after that season.
Yeah, probably. We had what we would do? We would it's funny now because I can sit here in the comfort of my own home at 68 degrees and feel pretty good about it. But we'd be out there in Houston and like on a Monday, and they would work out guys. Well, they would literally bring guys in. They were like, oh, he's 400 pounds. We saw him at the grocery store. Let's put him at tackle. So they'd bring him in. They'd bring in like 5 or 6 guys, and they'd go through these workouts. And I remember sitting there, I'm like, okay. And then they would start. Like, they would literally start at tackle.
After working out on Monday.
Like, maybe they'd been on a team before,
right.
But they got cut, and they're, like, bouncing around trying to find a spot. Oh, Houston's got an opening at tackle. And then we go and, we're going to play the Colts and Dwight Freeney. And, like, I go to snap the ball on the first snap, and he doesn't even get out of his stance. I'm not going to name the guy's name, but he doesn't even move, like on the film. Freeney comes, boom, back of the head, fumble. Tackle's still in his stance.
Sorry that I'm laughing.
He's still in his stance, bro. Like, at least move, But that was it. That was our life for a while, for a year and a half.
You had your best year in Houston. I think you guys finished 7-9, but Andre Johnson came on board.
He helped. Yeah.
What's your best memory? What's your best on-field memory from your time with the Texans?
Well, honestly, our first game was
Cowboys, right?
We ended up beating the Cowboys, which was my favorite team growing up. My grandfather's favorite team. Everybody was at the game, and it was kind of funny because of course we had all the issues, but we're like, we won. We're gonna 8-8, maybe we'll go. Maybe we'll get in the first round of playoffs.
First NFL game.
I was thinking after the game, I'm like, we might get in the playoffs. 22 years old. Like, then we go play the Chargers, and I got hit like 20 times. And we got wrecked in junior say. I was in the A gap, jumping through my center and guard every play. We had no answers for him. So that was the rest of the season. But yeah, probably that Cowboys game, and then even that 7-9 year. We had some good runs. We lost like 3 games, I think, in the last minute, where we'd go down and score. Favre did it to me once. We go down and score on Sunday Night Football. We're like, we got this, and I was a big Brett Favre fan, so. I'm sitting there, I'm kind of watching as a fan, but I'm kind of like, we got to win this game too. I'm like, I think we left him too much time. There's like a minute left, and he freaking touchdown. And I'm like, oh, that was kind of cool. Wait, we lost. They happened like 3 or 4 times that year. Ryan Fitzpatrick ended up playing us that year. We're up. So the coach, he lets me call my own plays in the first half.
Really?
We're up 21-3 because it was fun. We just got in like a 3 wide receiver set, 2x2, and we would just get on the line and try and catch them off guard a little bit. Like,
right.
I'll give you some standard plays that you can run, and you just call them how you see them. And it was easy because they line up in, when you do no huddle type stuff, they'll line up in pretty much base coverage. And if they do anything funky, you'll see it pretty quick. So we ended up scoring like 21 points in the first half. We're like, sick. We go in halftime, and the coach is like, all right, we got them right where we want them, guys. We're going to pound the rock in the second half. And I'm like, I don't know if I like the sound of that. And so we go back out and we start running at stuff. And I'm like, can I call my own plays? Or are we just going to go back to this? No, we got a good lead. And it was like, of course you're going to lose this game, right? And so Fitzpatrick comes in, they throw a touchdown, onside kick, touchdown, game over. JP Lossman, Buffalo Bills.
Yeah,
remember JP?
Of course.
Did the same thing to us, threw a touchdown with like 13 seconds left. Like we could have been like a, 10-6 team that year maybe, got in the playoffs, but that was it.
That's the razor thin line in the NFL.
Yeah, it is. That's what we were talking about earlier. Everybody's supposed to be kind of 8-8, And if you have 3 of those games break your way, well, now you're a 10 or 11 win team and you're in the playoffs, So
5 years in Houston.
5 years in Houston.
And then your next season you go to Carolina.
Carolina.
And that was a quarterback room with, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Vinny Testaverde was there.
Yeah, Vinny was there. Jake Delhomme was there.
And Matt Moore, right?
And Matt Moore was there. We had a good quarterback room. We all played because
you guys played at least 3 games that year.
Yeah, it was kind of a crazy year. So I broke my back that year. I remember talking with John Fox. I went out there. I love John. Like, he was a good buddy with Pat Hill, and I was like, man, I need a year to just kind of like reset, because. And I talked to him about like I don't know if I want to play anymore. Like, it was difficult. Like, the Houston thing really like kind of rubbed me the wrong way with football.
Sure.
And he's like, oh yeah, I don't know. You just come out here, you be our backup. And then the second game, Jake Delhomme, we're in Atlanta, breaks his hand or whatever he did. And I'm like, sick, let's go. So I went in. We won the game. Ended up, I don't know if I threw a touchdown pass, but we ended up winning that game. And then the next week, I can't remember who we played, but I was New Orleans. And get just crunched. I sit down. I can't remember who it was. Lands in the back of my head. I go forward, compression fracture, bottom 2 vertebrae in my back. I'm like, sweet.
So you felt it right away.
Yeah, I knew right away. I'm like rolling around on the ground. Steve Smith's on the team. He runs over. He's like, you're all right. I'm like, can't even like talk to him because I'm like out of breath. So we go underneath in the dome, and they're like, well, it's broke, but you can't really do anything else to it. Like, it's just, it's pain tolerance. I'm like, wow. I'm like, so wait, I can't. Yeah, it's like we can give you some Tylenol. And
I remember you saying this story before.
You'll be cool. And I'm like, well, give me the Tylenol. Let's go. And so like they gave it to me. And I go take a couple snaps in the tunnel. And I'm like, I mean, let's just go try and do it. I could barely get under center. And I go to the sideline, and Steve's like, just throw me the ball, dude. Just throw me the ball. We'll be fine. And New Orleans is not easy to play. Like, it's a tough environment, So I go in. My adrenaline's through the roof because my back is broken, and I'm like just trying to survive this thing. So I'm just trying to like pinpoint accuracy. I'm trying to make sure I'm precise on every movement because every movement hurts, And I end up making a couple nice throws to Steve, and then I hit him on a touchdown, and we ended up winning the game. And then I don't play for a month after that because I woke up the next day and I couldn't wash my hands in the sink. I'm like, my kids are making fun of me because they're running around. So it's Austin and Tyler. They're little at the time. And they realized that I couldn't grab them. So they would like come up and they would like mess with me or like kind of flick me in the back of the head. And then they would jump on the ground, and I'm like, and I couldn't like grab my kids, like pick them up off the ground. So yeah, it was crazy. So then Matt played, Vinny played. I came back too early. Mike McCoy let me come back. He probably shouldn't have. He told me he shouldn't let me play. I tried to play. I didn't play well. And then I think Vinny played that next week, and he played pretty good. So I was like, Vinny got it. And then I ended up leaving after that.
And you went to the Giants.
I went to the Giants, yeah. So Coughlin was good friends with Dom Capers, who was my head coach in Houston. And when Tom was out of a job in Jacksonville, he hung out with us for a year. Like, he literally was just at our facility, and we would just chat and talk. And so when I left Carolina, he was like, just come up here. Just come up here. Eli's obviously the quarterback, but you'll be our backup. Because I'd known him for 10 years, at that point. And so I went up there, and it was great, man, because they were the best team in football the year before. They had just won the Super Bowl. Had David Tyree with a catch. Mm-hmm. So I got there in OTAs, and they got Jared Lorenzen, hefty lefty out there, Anthony Wright. They got like 5 quarterbacks. I'm like, really? Like, all right. So I start throwing, end up, getting the backup job, just me and Eli, and spent the next 2 years there, and it was great. And then ended up going to San Francisco.
Why did you go to San Francisco?
So I was there for 2 years. After the first year, it went good. Got in a couple games, threw a couple touchdowns. Sean O'Hare's there. Offensive line's absolutely nails, and it's easy. Football was just easy, And I was like, I haven't had football be this easy, and where I can just do my job and we win. That's all I have to do is just what I'm capable of doing. And really learned how to study the game too from Eli. Even though he's younger than me, we would sit down and have great film sessions, and Tom Coughlin would be in there too. And Kevin Gilbride was actually really good at that as well, really teaching me how to study film, how to prepare for the opponent. And I got a lot better in those first 2 years. The 2 years that I was there in New York, I played a lot because we would blow teams out. We were a good football team. And so I'd play the second half of a lot of the games, and I just got a lot of confidence back, and I'm like, I can do this. So me and Eli would sit there, and he was one of my biggest fans when I was there. He's like, you got to go start somewhere again. And so we would literally we'd watch game film, and we would watch teams, and he's like, San Francisco needs a quarterback. They're literally a quarterback away from going to this thing. And so when my contract came up, I was like, well, let's go check it out. So I went out and visited San Francisco. Mike Singletary was the head coach at the time, and so I signed with San Francisco to be their quarterback, and with Alex was there, and we signed the same year, same money, and so it was going to be open competition. And then I get there, and I'm there for about 2 days, and the GM that was there gets fired, and so now it's the guy that brought me in, I'm not his guy anymore. And Singletary was not really interested in offensive football. Tried to stick his nose in there a lot. Right. Singletary's a great linebacker, and he's a great guy, but he micromanaged on the offensive side a little too much. And we weren't very good. We were a talented football team, but we were bad, and we'd had a bad scheme. Offensively, I remember I'd get in heated debates with the offensive coordinator, Jimmy Ray, because it just didn't make sense to me. I was just in New York, and they just won the Super Bowl. This is how you run offensive football. There's answers for situations that come up in the game, and he didn't have answers for certain things. I'm like, what if they bring these two guys right here? He's like, just buy some time. I'm like, that ain't working, bro. You can't just buy time here. You got to have an answer for that. And so we butted heads big time. Right. And so I wouldn't play. I played in the last preseason game. I was 10 for 10. And then after the game, he was like, I'm not really sold on our offensive, our backup quarterback. And I'm like, this dude, because we just didn't get along. Right. And I was like, I just had a perfect game. I just literally did everything that you asked me to do. But so anyway, that whole year happened.
Did you feel like that was a lost year then?
Yeah, it was. So I went back to New York, and so I ended up, so Harbaugh comes in to San Francisco, right? And he's like, we can't pay you the same as Alex. Obviously, Alex was playing, and he was going to make some more money. He's like, will you take a pay cut and stay? Just trust me, man. It's going to work out. We're going to be a good football team. And I had a long conversation with him for it went over 2 days. I called him, talked, went into the office, talked to him, and I'm like, I just can't do it. I just don't feel because they had just drafted Colin also. Mm-hmm. And so it's Alex, me, and Colin. I'm the third guy out because you didn't bring me in. I know you want me to do well. I know I appreciate.
But you're not his guy. You're not their guy.
Yeah, and I appreciate what you're saying to me. And he would tell me I ended up staying in Indy for less money. We ended up playing better, and I respect him for that. He was honest with me. But at the time, I could just walk back to New York and do the same thing. So that's what I did. I ended up going back to New York, and then we played them in the NFC Championship that next year. And I spilled the beans and told them everything that was going on and all the personnel. And of course, that's what you do.
That's what you do. Everybody does that. So,
and Eli just gets his head knocked off in this game. Justin Tuck, we're in San Francisco. It's sloppy, and he's just getting wrecked because San Francisco's legit. They're a good defensive line. And Tuck's you're going to have to go in and win this game, dude. I'm like, maybe. I mean, Eli's Gumby. He literally is Gumby. He doesn't get hurt. I'm like,
it is pretty incredible.
He's going to be fine. Let's just be real, Tuck. He's not going to be hurt. And they won the game. We went to the Super Bowl, and won the Super Bowl. So it was fun.
So when you left San Francisco to go back to New York, was that kind of the first time in your career you had said, I'm a backup quarterback from here on out?
Yeah, because at that point, I was I went out to San Francisco to be the guy. I'm I know Alex is there, but I feel I'm pretty confident in my ability. I learned a lot when I was in New York. I'm ready to do this, And then I got out there, and that whole thing happened, and I was like, you know what? I'm not that I'm content with being a backup, but I'm pretty comfortable in that role. And I know that there's a team out there that's a pretty good team that has they think highly of me in that role. And they wanted me back. As soon as I told Jim Harbaugh I couldn't do it, Coughlin called me like an hour later. It was like, just come back to New York. I got a spot for you. So I ended up staying there for 2 more years.
And you
Won
get
the
that
Super Bowl.
You get that ring. That must have been
great.
pretty sweet.
Yeah, it was
right?
great. And I loved New York. I mean, it was, I love Eli, but I almost wish he didn't exist because that would have been a great team to play for.
I think it's fascinating though. You say you played 6 years in the league, and then you get up there to New York, and you're still learning. Like you're learning other ways to study.
Yeah, it was because when I first got to Houston, Tony Banks, who I love Tony, but he was trying to still play. He had just come from Washington. He wanted to be the starting quarterback, and he sees a young guy, and he's like, I'm not going to help this guy. And a lot of quarterbacks have that feeling. And I'm not, bashing Tony at all because he wanted to get on the field. So why is he going to spend time trying to teach me how to play the position? So he didn't, and we were good friends. We'd go play golf together, and we'd do everything. But he was interested in playing. And, I didn't really learn a lot. I was kind of just on my own trying to figure out, okay, what do I study here? It's Monday afternoon. I'm going to watch some games of the Titans. And then Tuesday, it's my day off. So I'm just going to go play golf or something, I guess. It's my day off. Like, that's what your day off is. And then, like, halfway through the season, Steve McKinney was the center. He's like, you can come in and work out on your day off. And I'm like, really? It's my day off, dude. Like, I was told not to come in. So I didn't come in. And so it's just a weird. And then
But you didn't know any better. That's what you thought was.
There's no other quarterback. Tony's not going to tell me to come in. He was in there, but he wasn't going to bring me in there, I'd see him like, I'm like, so you were here yesterday, Tony? On Wednesday? He's like, yeah. I'm like, this dude, you can give me a call or something, bro. So that's I kind of went through that. And then I got to New York, and it was like Monday and Tuesday. That was quarterback's day. Like, we were working. We were just in the building, and I would be there all day, and then I'd leave at like 5 o'clock and go home and have dinner with my wife. But that was normal. That's what quarterbacks do. But I didn't learn that until 6 years in.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. That's the kind of stuff that I wanted to tell Derek, just to make it easier for him. It's like, no, your day off's not Tuesday, bro. That's your work day.
Right.
It's not physical, but you're doing your work.
But that's one of those type of things that when older guys see that, they're like, oh, man, like he's not – you didn't even know, but he's not here on Tuesday. He's not working hard, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I had no idea, and no one told me to be there.
Right.
It's just one of those, unwritten rules that that's where the quarterback's at.
Right.
So it was, it was a learning process. But.
Has there been any learning process for you post-playing career? Whether it be TV or whether it's coaching or business?
Yeah, well, so a lot of things. I think, TV was fun because, like you have someone yelling in your ear on the field, but it cuts off at 15 seconds. They can't talk to you anymore. So like at 15 seconds, you're like, I'm free. The next 15 seconds is like heaven. You call my own play, can talk to these guys. They don't stop talking to you on TV.
Yeah.
They're just like, you'll be saying something. That was the thing that like, I was froze. Like I'm talking and I'm just like, who's talking in my ear? So I just stopped talking. And then on camera, it's like, why isn't Dave talking? I'm like, because someone's talking to me.
Because I'm listening now.
I have respect for my elders, and someone's talking in my ear, so I'm going to listen. So that was like a learning curve. All the TV stuff, because I didn't do any of that stuff in college and high school. I didn't prepare at all for that. The only preparation I had for any type of media stuff was being in New York, because there was 50 people in the locker room every day.
All the time, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm talking to Kim Jones. I'm talking to Garofolo. I'm talking to all these guys that are now they're on the network with me, and like it was just a great spot because Eli wouldn't talk, wouldn't say nothing. You could never get anything out of him. And I'm like, just Mike, come here. I'll tell you what's happening. And so me and Garofolo would sit down at lunch and we'd just talk about the team, and it would help him out.
Right.
And then I developed a relationship with these guys, and then Sean O'Hara ended up doing an NFL film spot out there in Philly, and he said, come out here and do this show with me. And so I did it, and then I was like, I don't want to fly out to Philly all the time. He's like, oh, they got a studio in LA. I'm like, perfect. And then I came out, and you were there, and we went out to lunch, hung out, and got to meet everybody, and I was like, this is pretty cool. LA's nice. And so, so that was the learning curve. Coaching in high school was hard because I showed up with a full like Giants playbook, like, hey guys, we're gonna take over the world. And we had maybe 3 guys that could play football. We're at a little Christian school, like we're terrible. Like these guys are like, first of all, I'm not here for this. I'm here to get an education. I'm gonna go to college somewhere. Like we didn't have football players until like a year and a half after I was there. Like they started coming in a little bit, but I tried to teach them the entire New York Giants offensive system.
Right.
And they looked at me like, what?
Who is this guy? What are you doing?
What's this clown doing? Like we had 3 plays last year. What are you doing with 300? So that was a learning curve too. We got waxed our first year. We weren't very good. And then I kind of learned how to, teach high school kids football, and you kind of just pare it down, find out what they do really well, what they can do really fast and not have to think. And then you can still, like, for me, I started calling plays like to where I could get the quarterback on the hash near me, and then so I could talk to him because there's no crowd noise. I didn't think about that, but I'm like, if I can get this guy 7 yards away from me, I can just tell him where to throw the ball. It's kind of a weird dynamic, but like you even like watch now, like I'll have buddies come out and they'll watch our games. They're like, you're always calling the plays till you're near hash. I'm like, yeah, so I can tell the quarterback what to do.
You're saying while the play's going on,
I'm telling him where to throw it. Yeah, because like in high school, they don't play a lot of different defenses. You'll see a team, some of the best teams. Like we won the state championship last year in our division, and that team played 3 defenses all game. And I could see them right away because I'm trained at like another level.
Of course,
and so if I'm using that ability, and I can tell this high school kid who you met out here, who you saw throwing the ball out here, like where to throw the football before it happens. That's pretty much what I do. So it's been fun.
So you've been the OC.
Been the OC.
Your brother Darren is the head coach.
Yeah, he's the head coach. Yeah.
And is your dad the defensive coordinator?
Does quarterbacks. Yeah, because I get upset, and I don't want to deal with quarterbacks. They're high school kids. They don't get it. So I'm like, Dad. So we had a kid come off the field crying one game. And I'm like, I don't know how to respond to that. What am I supposed to do? Like, I can't talk to him. Dad,
well, how does your dad respond? Because he's the big
best.
tough guy, though.
He is, though, but like he's so mellow now. After he stopped working and now he just does the quarterbacks, like he was a nightmare to deal with. Like, it's so funny. Like my kids, they're like, Papa yelled? I'm like, Papa was the worst yeller ever. And now he just is happy all the time. Like, he's a completely different animal now.
That's awesome.
He deals with the quarterbacks that cry. I can't do it. I can't do it.
He deals with the quarterbacks that cry.
I can't do it, man. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So what else keeps you busy? You have a training facility. I mean, you have your place here.
Yeah.
Is there another place that you?
Yeah, there's another one. So we developed a pretty good relationship with Valley Children's Hospital, who's in this area. Okay. They have a hospital up in Madera. They have another couple facilities, smaller facilities, kind of throughout. And so we got a training facility with them. And then we have another gym kind of centrally located in Bakersfield where a lot of our clients go. Now, we'll bring people out here, but it's kind of on an individual basis or like a small group basis, unless I'm bringing like, 10 or 12 of Tyler's buddies, which is my son that plays at BCHS. We'll bring them out. But other than that, the majority of our clients go to that centrally located place or the one with the hospital. So
there's so many guys now that are quarterback coaches for big-time prospects.
Yeah.
Do you ever have a desire to do that?
I did think about doing that for a while, and I kind of dabbled in it a little bit, but it's a lot of time. It's a lot of time, and I enjoy the high school kids. I like talking to them because they don't know anything. They know nothing.
Right.
And like I went down and I talked to Rosen at UCLA. I think we might have talked about it before in the past. And like I'll do some of that stuff for guys that I've played for, like coaches that are there. And I'll
ask you to come in and speak to
they'll ask me
guys.
to come in and speak to them. And so I'll do that. And I enjoy that because that kind of challenges me mentally, kind of puts you back in that space. But I also like to teach, just our basic philosophy. Like we're sitting down and randomly our Super Bowl against the Patriots is up. It's on, NFL films or whatever. And we're sitting there. And so I just break out the playbook like that's in my desk. And I go over and sit on the couch. And I'm showing my son, Tyler, who plays. I'm like, oh, it's our first third down. Here's what we ran. And like I show him the play and like we start talking about X's and O's and he knows nothing about that stuff. So like any information I give him, he just absorbs it. And it's kind of the same thing that I noticed with like junior high school kids. They just absorb literally everything and they're able to kind of regurgitate it and spit it back. So you can kind of like form those guys and kind of shape them into where they're going to have a chance to be pretty successful. And it's kind of like what I did with Derek. Like he showed that he wanted to play quarterback kind of around 11, 12 years old, and I just started bringing him in quarterback rooms with me. And he was just a sponge, man. He would take in all the information, wanted to know everything about protections. And then he'd be sitting up there in the stands with my dad, and he'd be like, oh, here comes the nickel will, and like they're going to bring this pressure. And like sure enough, they'd bring it, and he would see it, and he's 14, or 13 years old. So like that stuff's fun for me. The college kids are great, and they're going to go on, they're going to do their thing, but I'd rather just analyze them. Kind of tell everybody what's wrong with them.
What about being an analyst for games? We called the Fresno State game together, and it was
fun.
This was crazy because it was a streaming game on Facebook.
Yeah, that's right.
And it was the first game you had called, I believe, right?
Yeah, that's the first one I've done.
And so I don't know if you remember this, but we're like 5 minutes away from kickoff. Uh-huh. And I look over at you and I've said, so do you know how this works? And you're like, I think so. And I said, well, I'm going to call the play. You give your analysis.
Yeah.
But then when they get to the line, you need to lay out. In broadcast terms, that means don't talk, shut up,
Yep.
and let me call the play. And you're like, all right, cool. And that was it. Like that was all the schooling he had on calling a football game. And I thought you were really good.
It was fun, man.
And I was surprised that you didn't really do a whole lot more of that.
Yeah, no, probably because you ruined me, dude. It was just so easy. You broke it all down. And you're like, this is it, man. This is how you do it. And
I like to keep it real simple.
It was just so smooth. I was like, I can't work with anybody else. Like this would be a disaster, you know. So that's honestly, it was fun. I enjoyed doing it. But so I started talking to a couple different organizations that do that, and then they would be like, well, the game's on Sunday, but you got to come out Friday, and you got to be there Saturday for the interview, and then you got to do Sunday. And then sometimes you can leave Sunday, sometimes you got to come back Monday. I'm like, I got kids, man. And so that's kind of where it's at, honestly, for me, because so with the NFL Network, I'm able to do our shows, and they're great at understanding that I have games on Fridays. Now, maybe not this year, you know, until later. But, you know, for the last 5 years or how long I've been there, they've been super flexible about knowing that I need to coach my high school team, be there because my kids are playing, you know? If my kids weren't playing and I was just saying I want to be a high school coach for the joy of me being able to get victories against high school coaches, that's kind of selfish. But, like, my kids are out there, and I want to be there. And that's kind of why I stopped playing, honestly. That's why after New York those last 2 years, my son was going to be a freshman in high school, and I'm like, I got to be kind of done here, you know? We got to go do our thing. So we moved back here, and that's what I've been doing. So that's honestly why I haven't done any more TV stuff. As far as broadcast goes, I loved it. I enjoy it. That's my favorite part. Even when we do like the studio shows, my favorite part is just to tell you what's happening. Like explain, you know, be able to explain to my wife, and at the same time have the respect of my brother as I'm explaining what's happening.
It's not easy to do.
No, it's hard. Yeah, it's hard because you inevitably might let one of those people down, you know, or you're going to be my wife will tune me out because it's too much information.
Too technical.
My brother's like, oh, you just like that guy just because he went to Fresno. I'm like, it's not technical enough for me. So he'll just tune me out. But so I try and find that like balance, you know, and that's kind of what I think about when I'm doing it.
Well, I think it's the hardest thing to do. And a similar story with Joe Thomas when he stopped playing, and he was one of several people that auditioned for that Monday Night Football job. Yeah. That ended up going to Booger and then Jason Witten.
Yeah.
And Joe's very good on TV as well, but I think that was part of the deal is he's told this story before, but I think it was Tess who said, all right, it's a Monday night game, but we're going to be in there early. We're going to be in there probably Thursday or Friday, and we're going to have a big team dinner.
It's not happening, dude.
And he's like, hold on. The game's on Monday night. You want me coming in on Thursday or Friday? And because that's when you meet with the teams, and then the visiting team flies in on Saturday, and Joe's like, dude, that's like a full work week. Are you out of your mind?
When you talk to ex-players, like, first of all, that's why they don't become coaches. Like, because we're like, first of all, the coaches, did you know that he slept there last night in the building? Yeah, he has a cot. Like, Coughlin slept in his office. Like, he's crazy. So he's out, right? We're not going to coach. Then we find out that you guys have to go to the games 4 days ahead of time. And like, that's crazy.
Right.
Like, I don't know if you remember, but the Facebook thing, like, I showed up about 2 hours before that game started.
I do.
And then we did our thing, and we were good.
And it worked out fine.
And it was perfect.
Yeah.
And everybody got what they needed, and we got to call the game and had a good time, and we got to go home.
And you got to drive right home to Bakersfield.
I drove home an hour and a half later.
Yeah, that was amazing.
So it was perfect.
Yeah, it doesn't always work out that way. But all right, couple of quick hitters, then we'll let you go.
Okay.
Last thing you Googled.
How to hang a sword in drywall. I wanted to, because I have a Braveheart sword that my dad got me that they used on the set. Like, it's a replica, it's like a fake one, but he got it for me. So I'm like, okay, I got to put this in my office. I don't want to call someone, because like I'm 41 years old. I should know.
You should know how to,
Yeah. So I want to do it right though. I don't want it to fall because it's heavy, So I Googled that yesterday. I haven't put it up yet though.
So you are gonna do it.
I'm gonna hang it up. Yeah, I'm gonna do it myself. Yeah.
I would totally hire a handyman to do that.
I know.
What if the sword falls? Like, if the sword falls, it could hurt somebody.
It could hurt a lot of people. It could hurt myself. It's right above my desk.
Yeah, you got a 2-year-old.
I mean, a lot could go wrong, Dan. But hey, it's a chance I'm willing to take. So hopefully the information was appropriate.
I hope it's a good YouTube video.
I hope so too. We'll find out.
We're driving here with cameraman Brian, and I normally drive a truck, a Tahoe, but we decided to bring the car.
Perfect.
And it's a long, flat road. There weren't a lot of cars. So I got up there a little bit.
Oh, yeah,
I was testing it. I think I hit my limit. I don't know, Brian, was it 112?
Oh, I thought 107.
Okay, now I think you looked away.
He was paying attention.
I think you looked away at 107. We did hit double digits. I've never done that before, but it's once you get over what's called the grapevine, you're kind of going through these foothills. It's just flat. You're in farmland, and you can go.
Yep.
So for a long time, I'm not sure what car you're not going in the studio right now. You haven't been in for 4 or 5 months during the pandemic. But beforehand, you would take that hour 45, 2 hour drive in a Tesla, and a lot of times you would just let it drive itself.
Yep.
But I'm sure you went fast. What's the fastest you've gone? You need to answer this question. I already told you. I went over 110.
Okay. The statute of limitations is
yes.
that maybe?
Nobody's going to hear this.
This was like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
I think I did 156. 156.
That's amazing.
It was
in the
out
Tesla?
Here. Yeah, no, it wasn't in the Tesla. It was actually in a Ferrari that my brother bought me.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and which is my brother's crazy. So Derek, when you get $30 million a year, it's
you
like
gotta buy your brother
just buy your
nice.
brother a Ferrari. It's like I don't even want this, dude. Like I'm gonna do the Ferrari in Bakersfield. Are you kidding me? Like,
you're gonna go 156.
We'll go 156 on an old farm road out here and scare the crap out of some people that are in the car with me. So that was fun, man. Yeah, and I've done that. I haven't done that straight line stuff, but I've definitely in Bakersfield, Sheriff Youngblood, if you're listening. I'm sorry, but your roads are perfect, man, for these nice long country drives. Like there's some really cool foothills around here. You can slide a Ferrari around a corner.
No way.
For a good.
What do they call that? What are they, drifting?
Drifting, yeah.
Yeah.
When you have a car like that, it's so much easier. Like I'm not a great driver. So I grew up in Bakersfield. We raced go-karts, so I love racing. Like I would consider myself a pretty good driver.
Right.
But those cars make you so much better that, like, so Todd Sunterpack, who's the CEO for Valley Children's Hospital, he's a big time guy, like, but he likes his cars. Now he can't drive them, but he likes them. So I put him in that car, and we came off an off ramp over here on the West Side Parkway, and I was sideways the whole time. So smoke all the way up the hill, and he was grabbing the little handle, like terrified, but he was giggling like a 12-year-old. It was hilarious.
We came off one of those new roads that have been built.
There's some good ones.
And it's like a NASCAR track.
Well, it's because it's Bakersfield.
It's not like a 25-degree grade.
We don't do the little slow off ramps here. Kevin Harvick designed these, right? So NASCAR guy, like you're gonna come off I-5, you're gonna come off at a 45 and be able to.
Is he from here?
Oh yeah. Casey Mears, Rick, all those guys are from here. Yeah.
So you grew up racing go-karts?
I went to school with Casey Mears, who's his dad was Roger Mears, raced Baja trucks. Rick Mears, Indy guy. He would drive all these random, race trucks to school, and we would go jump them over the canal. And I grew up doing go-karts and stuff. Like, my mom sold my go-kart because it was dead, but it was just a spark plug. My dad got home, was pissed.
Is that right?
Oh my goodness, he was so mad. She sold it for like $75.
Oh my God.
It was my go-kart, dude. Like that's what I did. I threw a football and I'd race go-karts. Sold it.
That explains why you'd always come into the network wearing like racing shorts or like a t-shirt, like Fox or whatever. Fox Racing.
When my boys listen to this, they're going to absolutely roast me because they said that's the only shorts that I wore for like 10 years is Fox Racing shorts. Because I could mountain bike in them. Yeah. I could go race in them. I could get them dirty, and they had pockets. I could keep my plays and my pins in there. I could go out to coach. So I would literally go coach at BCHS with like Fox Racing shorts on. They're like, who is this guy? Like,
that's so funny. Well, I'm glad I'm not the only one that noticed.
I got 12 pockets. You don't, so.
You don't need anything else. These were supposed to be quick hitters. We went up into a rabbit hole on that one. Smartest quarterback you played with?
Eli, for sure. Yeah, he was just like, well, when I first got there, it was one of those deals where I thought I knew the game. I was 6 years in. I'd started a lot of games. But he would see stuff on film, and I would be like, I didn't even see that, So, right. and then he was able to. His processor was just faster than everybody's. So even on the field, I would be standing behind him in practice, and he'd see something happen. He'd throw the ball, and I'm like, where's he throwing this? And then it just kind of floats into the middle of the defense, and then boom, hits the guy in stride. I'm like, I didn't even see that, And so that was like he had the in the whiteboard on the chalkboard, he was nails, but then he could take it out to the field, and it was like even faster. It was really awesome.
What's the number one most important trait for a quarterback to be successful in the NFL?
It sounds simple, but it's accuracy. So I would say it's one trait, but accuracy and decision making. That's all that matters. Really, I mean, toughness is there. You got to have the intangibles. You got to have a strong enough arm.
Right. Assuming that's all even though.
Assuming all that stuff is there. Like assuming every quarterback is tough and they've played football their whole life, they understand what it takes. I would probably even lean more towards decision making because everyone's accurate, right? Like if you're in the NFL, you're an accurate quarterback unless you just can't hit the side of the barn. Exactly. But if you can make good decisions in the run game, where to go with the ball, you play for a long time. Yeah.
Speaking of decisions, did you second guess your decision to tweet at Jameis Winston about his workouts with his trainer buddy?
You know what's so hard about that is like, yes, okay, so I'll say yes because I know Jameis.
Right.
And like even in his response back, like he was almost like, why don't you just come say it to me?
Right.
You know?
Right.
But
did he make you feel bad in the response? Because I thought that was a pretty good response. Like
it was the best response
it was
because
good.
he like, hey dude, like we've had real conversations like this before.
Right.
Like why don't you just come tell me? But you know what it was? It was like, and it's hard because on Twitter, I'm just the ex-quarterback that works for the NFL Network. But I also have training facilities, and I see people do things all the time that are just not right. And like, if I see Jameis Winston or Alvin Kamara or someone do something in the training room, and I'm a young player, I'm just going to go do that because they're Alvin Kamara or Jameis Winston. They're good players. Not knowing that Alvin Kamara can do what he does just because he's Alvin Kamara. Like, that's not going to help you. Like, you need to do things a different way. You need to understand how your body moves. And like, Alvin's bored. Like, he's bored because he's such a good athlete. I'm going to throw all these weights on my back and kind of balance on this ball. Like, I can do that because I'm a physical freak. But, you know, we shouldn't do that stuff. And Jameis the same way. Like, Jameis, you can have a big swinging ball fly at your head and you can kind of move out of the way. Like, that's not really helping young guys that are watching you do that. So that's where my frustration is.
That's where it came from.
That's where it came from because I teach kids all the time now. You know, yeah, I'm the ex-quarterback, and that's kind of where people see the information. That's where Jameis saw the information coming from. But for me, it was an attack on his trainer. I'm like, your trainer's terrible, dude.
Right.
Like, get a new trainer. That's why I should have just wrote.
Right.
I shouldn't even have wrote anything else. But my man Jameis hit me. He cut me deep, man. He cut me real deep.
Did you even respond to that, or did you just
I
let
didn't
that
respond
one go?
to him. I actually ended up contacting him, like DMing him, and like,
you did.
You know what, dude, this wasn't. And I kind of explained it. I was like, this is just you can do better, man. Like, you're a great quarterback. There's other things that you can work on. Like, you don't need to. And he said, but he told me, like, he's had this same trainer since he was like 12. You know, it's his boy.
Yeah.
You know? So I get it. It's just, it was. I probably should have went about it a different way.
I saw that, and I'm like, oh boy, this is interesting. All right, last one.
All right.
One career do-over.
Man, that's hard. My initial one is I probably wouldn't have gone to San Francisco. I probably would have stayed because even Coughlin was like, just stay one more year. I had one more year available, he said, you know, and then just maybe a different spot because when I got out there, from the moment I got out there, it was all like kind of, this isn't right. From the moment I signed. Because like I signed and then Patrick Willis comes out and he's like, we don't need another quarterback. We have, you know, Alex, we have whatever. And I'm like, this was day one.
Oh, wow.
So I got on the phone with Patrick and I'm like, dude, I'm not here to like ruffle any feathers. And he had just come out of surgery. So he's like, dude, I was kind of high. He's like, so I'm sorry.
Still floating a little
bit.
bit.
He's like, I was just reacting emotionally. Like, I'm glad to have you. Like, and he was totally cool. But that was day one. Day two was or day three, GM gets fired. Day four was me and Jimmy Ray, the offensive coordinator, like butt heads on like, your protections suck. Like, we're going to get killed, dude. You know, and they did. And we did, you know? And so, and then Singletary hated me. Well, he didn't hate me. Like, we get along great off the field, but on the field, we just, you know, I wasn't feeling Mike as a head coach, you know? And I just missed Harbaugh by a year. That's the only thing. That's the only thing I regret, like just the timing of it. If I could have shown up
next year.
When Jim got there, like if I'd have stayed one more year in New York, and then, hey, you know what? San Francisco still needs a quarterback. Go out there that year. I mean, look at the success Alex and those guys had. So you never know what could have happened, but then I would have won the Super Bowl too. You know,
valid point.
You never know.
Got to put a positive spin on it.
That's right.
DC, thanks, brother.
You got it, man. Absolutely. It's fun.
I appreciate it. I'm going to go take a swim now.
Anytime.